Good morning. This session will be about ephemera. And I'd like first to thank the National Library of Art Stallman for inviting me. It's really tremendous. I think it's an outstanding topics, people, networking, everything, and really, it's wonderful. Now, before presenting the presenter, there are a few slides which will deal with the Zionist Archive. Hello. Okay, so it's housing a total of 80 million documents out of 800,000 photographs, which are mostly already scanned, 25,000 posters, and the announcement. Actually, announcement means the leaflets. And it's like 4,500 posters, and the rest are the leaflets, and they are fully scanned. And these are the geographical maps, all digitally scanned, 127,000. 2.2 million genealogical documents. Actually, I think we, together with the Yad Vashem, have the vast majority of genealogical documents. Anyone who ever applied for Aliyah or anything is from all over the world. It's all there with us. This is not digitized. This is the question of, like, you can't reveal everything. There is all kind of details which you can't just put on public, but it's there for people to research. A large collection of ephemera, which I'm going to show you in a minute, is a few details. 13,000 newspapers and periodicals, library and microfilm collection, 2,000 digital audio recording, also like already digitized. Now, this is like some examples of the ephemera, and here are some postcards. This is like a special postcard for this Dreyfus trial. Posters, and out of which we chose this one is the Battle of Palestine, is the battle of the all Jewish people, and this is like the blessing for the from the Israeli youth to the world youth in 1953. Adverts. Anyone goes back home, don't forget to buy some Israeli olive oil. Now, these are the admission tickets, and the special one is here, which is like which is like it's French and Hebrew, and speaks about the those סדרנים ממלאים את תפקידם, לובשים סימן סדרנים. Actually, the 10th, this is the, which Congress was it? 21st Congress, Geneva, 1939. Okay, some calendars and diaries. And this is the diary which was a present for the chief machers of the JNF. At the 1923 to 1924. Holiday and New Year's greetings. This one is was sent to Dr. Klosner, was not yet a professor, into the Zionist Archive. Games, lottery. This is actually the catalog of the 10th Congress in Basel. And this is the list of what was exhibited in Basel in the Zionist Congress. Everything came from Israel. And here you have like all kind of guides and other leaflets. And where is the lady? Which I promised her that we will be different. Here you are. Because here, this is the Lag BaOmer Tag, the Jüdische Frau. Okay, so this is it was from the Keren Kayemet in Germany, in Köln. And this is, again, Hadassah. Means health in Palestine for Jews, Christians, and Arabs. Thank you. Okay, so this was actually I could not attend the first session on Sunday for medical reasons, and so I just paid back my debt. And one more thing, yesterday when you were traveling in Jerusalem, I went to a breath. And in the breeze, the first time I saw something which I haven't seen before. This is תפילה בעת הבכי הילד הנימול. Because this is a prayer. Now, I know Shalom is going to show you something that's much nicer, but this is for me, it was a surprise. So Shalom, this is for you, for your collection. Okay. So without no further ado, I'd like to start the session. The presenter will be Professor Shalom Sabar from the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. And afterwards, we're going to have three people who are going to react to him, Dr. Peggy Pearlstein, Dr. Francesco Spagnolo, and Meron Eren. So, Professor Shalom Sabar, please.
Okay, Boker Tov, everybody. I'm very happy to be here. Actually, this conference has been amazing for me these last few days. Also allows me to teach a little less. In these days I was here and forgot a little bit about my students. This has been wonderful. So the first time, I think, in my academic career, I can say that I'm invited to speak in a conference not because of something that I've researched or have written about or of academic interest, but because I think of my collection. And I never realized that my collection can become one day this topic of discussion. This is really my hobby, what I'm going to show you. I've been collecting Judaica of this special kind that you'll see for the last maybe 15, 20 years. And I've been starting doing it because I'm involved with all these people, wonderful people that collect Judaica, like Bill Gross that's sitting here. And I see what they can buy, what wonderful objects they can buy that are very costly. And of course, as a university professor at the Hebrew University, you cannot buy this kind of objects, although I love them very much and I would love to have many talent to put on my walls at home, but I don't have even one, unfortunately. Then I found that there are many objects that I can buy, that are not very expensive, that are of great interest, that have wonderful iconography in them, that really continue the Jewish tradition in many ways, that speak about, let's say, ideas that continue to develop from the past until today in all fields of Judaica. And why not? And also, when I first started to collect this, is because I found that the Israel Museum and the collectors don't collect this. I remember I asked Chaya Benjamin, one of the curators of the Israel Museum in the Judaica section, maybe 20 years ago, why you don't buy the posters for Sukkot every year? And she said, no, there's no interest in new ones. So I started, and I do this until a few years ago. I did it every year. I go to the market of Arbaat Aminim or the market of Sukkot in Yerushalayim every year, and I buy everything that is new paper-wise. I mean, posters, Simchat Torah flags, everything. By now I have several thousands posters of Sukkot, I mean, that I collected over these years. And they're a collection. I mean, no, you cannot find them anywhere else in the world, as far as I know, because no one has been doing it. I don't know, maybe some others, but I'll show you at least what I've been doing. Okay, so let's begin with this, and I want to begin speaking about the past. Let's go back to 1967, when I thought this is a great song and something very moving, but now looking at the words again, who wants yesterday papers? Who wants yesterday's girl? Who wants yesterday papers? Nobody in the world. Yes, that was the avant-garde group of the time, the Rolling Stones singing that no one's interested in the past, no one's interested in this kind of ephemera, as we call it, and papers here attack everything that is of the past. But is this so? Is this really the case? Let's see. Let's try to find out. First, I want that we'll find out what is the definition for this term. And ephemera is a sort of made-up word. It's not really an old word. It's made of two words that were put together and actually taken from Greek and even Latin, New Latin, and they mean together. Really, the important component here is emera, the second section, which means day. Like Kalimera, you say, nice day, yes, good morning. Mera is a day. Things that last a day, that's what it means. Things that were done or produced to be used only for one day, to be something very short, yes? and the definition that has been developing, and this has become now a term for ephemera, has become a term for collectors. The usual definition is that these are printed and written documents not intended to be preserved. Yes, this is really like the basic definition, and it includes, as I gave you some examples, pamphlets, notices, tickets, and so on. But today, the definition is much broader, and we can see at the end of the definition, I included some more items that today are collectible as ephemera, like advertising, trade cards, playing cards, bookmarks, catalogs, greeting cards, letters, postcards, posters, and so on and so forth. All these are now collectible and can be found in many collections and so on. And today, actually, in the last few years, there is more and more, let's say, interest in everything that is ephemeral to be collected, and not only printed and written documents, and not only documents that were printed to be used for one purpose and then be thrown away. And it includes today also audiovisual material and objects also. Objects that were produced for short-lived period and to be used for one time or for one occasion and then are done away with. And I want to, of course, this will be the most important section of my lecture, to show you these three-dimensional objects and artifacts that are Judaica, in my opinion, that are all ephemeral in a way. And another thing that I want to give as a historical background or like a theoretical background to this is this book that I think, as to the best of my knowledge, is the first book, anthropological book, that discusses the issue of value system of objects in our society. This is this book by Michael Thompson that appeared in 1979, which is very, very old, thinking about that, and it's called Rubbish Theory. Rubbish Theory, in this book, this guy, Thompson, claims that every handmade object produced by humans, yes, has let's say, two categories that are immediately given to it, or two values that are immediately given to it by us, by people, and this is really what determines their life. One is durable objects, and the other one is transient. Transient? Yes, it's for, well, that's difficult for me to pronounce. Durable means, for example, a painting by Leonardo. Yes, I mean, objects like this, from the beginning, are produced to become valued cultural objects, and they will always increase in price. This is his theory. As the time goes, the time does good for them. Yes, something of, let's say, 2,000 years ago, an archaeological find that is considered something that is durable will be getting more and more valuable in time. A painting by Rembrandt, as we proceed, it will become much more expensive all as we advance. And this is what we do. We give this value to this object and make it like that. And then the second category are objects that are produced. We think of them as just to be used. And they will from the moment that they are produced and on, they will decrease in value. They will decrease in value. This is the transient objects. This is where ephemera falls. I mean, you have like what we're wearing. You wear, let's say, the same shirt maybe 1 month, some 1 year, or some 2 years, and then it goes to the garbage. You don't think of it as a value, as valuable object. Okay. And it will become rubbish. Yes, this will be the category that is created. This will become now the third category. It will become rubbish. The big thing is what to do to make this second category to become durable, or the rubbish to become durable. How you make, let's say, this old vase not something old and ugly, but an antique object. Okay, something like that that is valuable, and now you give it value and you explain what's the value and make it durable. Okay? And now the question is where Judaism, where Jewish artifacts fit in all this. And I always like to show this pair of images to my students and to ask where is Jewish culture in this, and where is the world culture? Do we produce durable objects, Jewish tradition, or do we produce words, books? Yes, I mean, we are the people of the book, it's known. There is not real value to objects in Judaism, except maybe ritual objects, but also they are not inherently sacred. While in the other traditions, let's say the Greco-Roman tradition, like the Aphrodite statue that we see here, by the way, it's a small statue of Aphrodite. She's the same height of the Talmud page. Yeah, so it's beauty in two ways. So she is a goddess, beautiful goddess, beautifying herself, showing her body to the spectator, showing the aesthetics of the time, showing how gods can be pleasant and so on, while the Jewish God is hidden. We don't see him because the world of objects is not so important. I just want to remind you that in the time of Matan Torah, of the giving of the law on Mount Sinai, the Bible says, "V'ha'am ro'im et hakolot." Even when they had to see something, they saw voices. They saw voices, because the voice, what you hear, the word, is much more important in the Jewish tradition than reality, than tangible object, than tangible reality. So let's say the idea of aesthetics of objects is not so much in Jewish society. So durable objects, let's go for a second back, are not something that we consider important. It's not, at least not from the tradition. So, and when you take a Judaic object and you examine from aesthetic point of view, it's totally different if you take a painting by Rembrandt. You ask different questions. A spice box from the 15th century, no matter how ugly it is, it's a spice box from the 15th century. Any collectors would love to buy it, no matter how it looks. It's totally different when we look at the world of art of, let's say, other people. So in a way, I would say, why I'm saying that, because in a way, most of the Judaica objects that we have today are ephemeral. I mean, they're produced for holidays, they're produced, let's say, for a wedding, for Brit Milah, for all kind of rituals, but they're not produced to be put in museums and exhibited and displayed and appreciated and be durable objects, as we use that definition. And even inside the Jewish world, I mean, and I'm showing here now this pair of two ketubot, on the left Italian, on the right Persian in the collection of Bill. Even in the Jewish world, these two ketubot are more or less the same years, 18th century, mid-18th century. One is very valuable, the other is not so valuable. Why? Well, you can ask the question why Persian ketubah is less valuable than Italian, but this is the fact in the market. Yes, I mean, even in our eyes, we make this judgment all the time, so it's the value that we put to the object is very important. And for me, the simpler it is, the more important it is. Yes, that's how I developed my ideas about this. So I'm showing you now another example of ephemeral Judaic object that is, for me, very, very valuable. This is a Hanukkah lamp from Samarkand in Uzbekistan. I was there the first time in 1992, and we interviewed the people. We lived in the Mahala of Samarkand for about a month, and we, of course, did documentation in the Center for Jewish Art, and we asked them, show us your Hanukkah lamps. They said, we don't have any Hanukkah lamps. Where is your Hanukkah lamp? We don't have any, we don't keep them. So what do you do in Hanukkah? We make them for Hanukkah. So I said, how you make them? So he said, come, I'll show you. In 10 minutes, he made this. 10 minutes, the tinsmith in Samarkand made this on this bench. He gave it to us at the end, and he said, next year we'll do another one. So it's this, I want just to show how ephemeral are the Judaic objects. And so with this now, we can go now to see more objects and more examples. Of course, everyone knows this monument, because really the documents that are here, of course, there are many important, and there are Bible documents and Maimonides and so on, but the stuff that is more interesting is the ephemeral anecdotes and documents that were found there, and they are very valuable. Everyone agrees that they are very valuable that were found there, maybe because they are 1,000 years old. But I think the same, if we won't do the same for today, this is what our paper world will look like. I mean, I want to avoid this. I don't want that the transient object will become rubbish. What I want is the opposite, and here is Motti, what Motti mentioned. Here's one of the first objects that I added to my collection. This when I found this small piece of paper, the crying, or the prayer for the time when a baby is circumcised, when he cries. This prayer I looked in many books in Sidurim and so on, I didn't find anywhere. Well, not at a chance find in a Geniza that I found this. I wouldn't know that something like that exists even. So you can save really this kind of rubbish, as they call it, and make it durable. That's my idea. That's the whole lecture, and the rest are examples, really. Now, where you can find them? Of course, there are the usual places, antique markets, the flea markets, eBay, of course, today is taking very much place. What Meron used to do before he owned Kedem, this is what he used to do. There are guys in Tel Aviv, I know, especially that go to apartments, especially of Yeke Jews, and buy everything that is there, and they can start to sell them to people crazy like me. They know, they have categories, you know, this one buys New Year cards, this one buys it. So they catalog, they buy the whole apartment for, let's say, so and so. You can ask Meron maybe for how much, and then they start to sell them. So there's an advertisement for one like that. And the supermarket is one of the best places for me. I buy a lot in the supermarket. I mean, everybody buys a lot, but I know I buy specific things not to be used. I buy wine bottles that I don't drink. Yes, I don't know many people who do that. I buy them only for the labels. I buy the wine by the label that I don't have. That's the category. Yes? Okay, or at the Geniza in Jerusalem or in Tel Aviv, wherever. You just go over the Genizot and open, and I pay them sometimes some money and so on. It's whatever if they want, but they find wonderful things. I'll show you. And in the garbage. A lot is found in the garbage. If you are in a folklorist, you have to look in garbage. No. My wife complains, but I do it. I mean, especially the garbage disposals in Rechavi are the best, I can tell you. So, all books. And look what they find in the Geniza. I mean, the Genizot. These are parchment. You tell me when I have 5 minutes, okay? Amulets, parchment amulets. These were all found in Genizot. Some are not opened. I have some examples for those of you who want to see later. Some I open to see what's inside. Some I leave closed like this. Pictures of rabbis. This one was from Morocco. It was produced in Morocco. It was found in the Geniza. Modern pictures of rabbis is also important. The contemporary scene is very important. I collect all this. Letters, was a big find. This whole envelope was found in one of the Genizot about 12 years ago. These are all letters to Rabbi Kaduri. These are letters to Rabbi Kaduri. He just reproduced one here that people write to him and ask for advice. In this case, I'm a woman, age 33, mother of 3 children. I have a problem with my liver. I have a leket or my liver or whatever, and she wants some advice. And there is the reply. At the bottom you have what she has to do. She has to check the mezuzot in her house and so on. So I have all this here. The questions, these were all from the office of Rabbi Kaduri. He died in 2006, but all these letters were found in the Geniza. They have all of them here, at least some of them are found. Of course, the political parties in Israel that joined this, and they produced this kind of wonderful ephemera as well. Or this, I mean, look at this one on the left here is by, of what? Okay. Okay, let me, then I'll skip to some other categories. This is another reason to go to the supermarket, and different supermarkets, different neighborhoods, because you'll find different boxes of Hanukkah candles. And for example, the one that's in the center was designed by Rabban, and it's continued to be produced many, many years after he died. And okay, or matzah boxes. I just want to show different ones. Today you have either with chocolate or whole wheat. I mean, it's so. Okay. Oh, and the wine labels. Yeah, the wine labels I want to show. I mean, they are very attractive. I mean, look at this. I mean, when you collect them and you try to examine Israeli society through them, like this, the wine Yain Atzmod on the top left after the 6-day war. The of Tzal, the wine of the army, and so on, I mean, so on, so forth. The earliest ones that they have are designed by Rabban again, from the 1920s. They are very valuable, of course. And also, when you travel, people know that every country that they go in the Kiddush and Erev Shabbat, they have to save the wine bottle, because then in my room, later night, I take off. So you have from different countries here. That's the hobby, really. Okay, let's keep this. Wedding invitations are very important. Again, I mean, I have several thousands. I don't know how many by now, but they really tell you how society is, how Jewish society is, different sections of the Jewish society. And of course, the imagery is wonderful. And you can see even how it changes all the time. And this is a kibbutz hazmana, and this is this young boy there, and so on. I mean, again, I mean, there is a lot to see when you start to examine this. And there are many, for example, hazmanot from Brooklyn, that the wedding will be in Jerusalem, but if the Messiah will not come, it will still be in J Avenue in Brooklyn. Okay, the last thing maybe I want to show you are the market that I mentioned of Arbat Aminim, market of Arbat Aminim, that Okay, let's keep that, and okay, let's keep that. And there you can find, look at this kind of imagery that you can find there. This was for 3 shekalim. Okay, this you can buy this poster of Joseph, of Maimonides. They are not available anymore. This is really something. And the last thing I want to show you, the Simchat Torah flags. Simchat Torah flags that, again, changed so much in time, and now you can see the entire history of Israel on something like this. This Simchat Torah flag, I will end with that, is the first one that I ever bought. And this was bought in the market in Jerusalem. When I started to collect this, I saw a man, an old guy. He said, I have only old flags, so I'll sell them only for 1 shekel each. Okay, so of course I bought for 1 shekel. So here you have all these people, I'm sure you recognize all of them. Okay, so I think just in a nutshell, I try to show you like how beautiful these objects are, first of all, how attractive they are, and how they continue really the images of Jewish past and continue to develop them. And if we don't save them, they will be gone. I mean, so the National Library is a big mission now. Aviad knows, we spoke a lot. And you know, I can tell you exactly what to buy. There are many categories. There are thousands of objects to buy, where to house them. But listen, I'm one person doing it for, you spoke about budget. I don't spend much money on this. I don't spend much time on this because I don't have, but still you can amass a lot of this. Okay, toda rabba.
You know, the new definition of Einstein's theory is that the collector's house is for him is paradise, for his wife is hell. Yeah. The first presenter will be Dr. Peggy Pearlstein, the head of the Hebraic section of the Africa and Middle Eastern Division of the Library of Congress. Peggy, bevakasha.
Thank you. I'm head of the Hebraic section, which is part of the African Middle Eastern Division of the Library of Congress. And my name is Peggy Pearlstein, even though it's spelled a little bit differently right here at the center of the room. So thank you for inviting me to speak at the conference, which is so highly informative, inspiring, and organized. Special thanks to Aviad and all the individuals at the National Library of Israel for their patience with the endless bureaucratic forms needed to be filled out before the Library of Congress approved this trip. It was touch and go for months, weeks, until days before the trip. A lot of ephemera. Right, all those forms are a lot of ephemera. I will intersperse the slides of the written word with examples of ephemera in the library. And a lot of what I have in the slides is based on a Library of Congress policy statement for ephemera. The Library of Congress has for its staff dozens and dozens of policy statements collecting women's studies, geography, maps, aviation, and there is one for collecting ephemera. So here you can see some examples of ephemera, and this came in 1993. I hate to tell you, but today when we stamp materials that say Library of Congress, there's no longer a date on them. So you have to really know when something comes in. Here are examples of postcards that we have from our collection. Posters. So, the Library of Congress collects current non-commercial, non-book publications. And as Shalom says, it includes all kinds of things that you can see: pamphlets, handbills, bulletins, newsletters, posters, information sheets, moving images, and electronic formats, for example, websites that might disappear. But of course, it's geared to the Library of Congress and collecting. And so whatever is of importance and interest to Congress, federal agencies, academic institutions, and the most important word for me, researchers. The collection policy statement also notes that we would encourage cooperation of projects with other libraries rather than duplicate efforts. And I know Chezi and I are going to talk afterwards. This is part of a collection of Yiddish ephemeral materials, posters that we recently acquired. So this is the Hospital for Joint Diseases in New York, and you can see it's in English, it's in Chinese, And then when you flip it over, there you've got the Yiddish, which to me is just fascinating, telling you about the society and the people who visit that hospital. This is something that we used last year in an exhibit that one of our interns did. She went through 10,000 pieces of ephemera and participated in an exhibit of summer interns. There were 40 of them. And this summer we have another intern, and we hope she'll go through another 10,000 pieces and kind of sort them broadly. This was from the Gulf War, how to put on your gas mask. So again, from the library's collecting policy about ephemera, you can see that a lot of it is geared toward developing countries or countries that are undergoing certain kinds of political or social changes. And therefore, the ephemera would enhance what is happening there at that moment. And also, the ephemera substitutes if there are no mainstream publications at the time. We have a large collection of political ephemera, beginning with the 1977 elections in Israel. So how do we acquire ephemera? Well, we do allocate some funds for acquiring ephemera. As I said, for Israeli elections, we've done that periodically. And we also allocate funds to dealers. Weinberg has been acquiring some Parshiot HaShavua material for us. And we also try and get material as gifts. We've got a postcard collection as gifts. Sometimes collectors give the Library of Congress large collections of what they've been collecting. And as I said, Weinberg is the dealer that we're dealing with now. Staff to handle this material is always in short supply, and generally we rely on volunteers and paid summer interns to deal with our ephemeral materials. It's not something that we can get to on a regular basis. Space is also a big issue with us, because you'll see that it takes a lot more space to put bulky posters and other bits of ephemera on a shelf where you could simply put books. Just yesterday, I got an email from Sharon Horowitz talking about one of our summer interns and what she's been finding as she's going through all of this ephemera. Today, Karen found an interesting pamphlet from an organization that tries to get women not to have an abortion. Also, a British flyer from 1929 in Hebrew announcing quiet hours in various cities in the aftermath of the Hebron riots. It has been folded for many years and needs work. So you can see that the intern has been looking at all kinds of material, both current and retrospective. We have a calendar collection, and here you can see I bring in every year from my kosher mart. We collect from everywhere. Whoever will give us calendars, some we've purchased, and a few have been cataloged. So how do we make our ephemera available? Because that's really our purpose. Some materials have been cataloged and online. We have a number of posters that have been cataloged online in various groups, and you can take a look at the subject headings. We have our collection of Ladino materials, for which we have a finding aid. The title page has been digitized. I wish I could tell you that we have more materials digitized online that's ephemeral, but we don't. While the Library of Congress has half of its collections in foreign languages, and it has digitized 15 million items, those are almost exclusively American items before 1923. So we do have 77 Yiddish plays that are digitized and online. We have the Matson photo collection of the Holy Land that's online. And more recently, in the World Digital Library, which focuses more on foreign countries, all the member countries of UNESCO, I actually was there when Elchanan came and delivered a disc from the National Library with material, old maps that appear on the World Digital Library. And I did get permission from 4 people to put on current limited edition materials. Tamar Messer's Shir Hashirim, Asher Calderon's Passover Haggadah, David Moss's Maftir Yonah, and Avner Moriah's Haggadah. We have lots of local finding aids to our ephemera. However, we don't have the material digitized. Another problem that we have is how to serve the materials, if it's stored off-site, if it's big and bulky, and if we give someone a box that's just filled with material. Do we do a piece count beforehand? Do we do a piece count afterwards with little materials? Some of it can get lost very easily. Here's the way some of our calendars are arranged by year, going back to the mid-19th century. And here you can see about 100 boxes that last summer's junior fellow arranged according to Library of Congress subject headings. And way in the back, you can see our unarranged ephemera that I hope this summer's intern will get to. And then this is the last thing that I want to show you. I came to Israel briefly for Pesach. I had a 3-day trip. I came Austrian Airlines, and I ordered kosher food. And I noticed that I said, gee, there's a hechsher from this caterer in Europe. Maybe we ought to be collecting that. And so I took it with me. And I also took with me my unopened matzah that I got on the airline. And there you can see it's this year's kosher LePesach matzah. So I think I'll just eat the matzah before next Pesach and just keep the wrappers. So these are a number of items that we have that we're trying to arrange and that we're trying to make available to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Peggy. And we'll now call upon Francesco Spagnolo from the Berkeley University. Bevakasha.
How do you pronounce your name? That means Spanish and Italian. The title is Curator of the Magnes Collection of Jewish Art and Life at the Bancroft Library of the University of California, Berkeley. And I managed to learn how to say it without breathing in between. First of all, thank you for the invitation. This is not only an old stomping ground, but really maybe my first stomping ground. I think I walked through the gates of this library when I was 17, the first time to come and meet Israel Adler and really got inducted into Jewish scholarship. When Aviad called me and actually wrote to me and said, can you participate in a session on ephemera, I was a little bit puzzled. And then both in thinking about it and in receiving Shalom Sabar's notes, I realized what my call was. And a way to summarize what has been discussed thus far, and I think we may all agree on this, is that this concept of ephemera is fuzzy. It's a fuzzy concept. I mean, it overlaps many categories. And I was like, fuzzy, I know. Fuzzy, I know for a number of reasons, but I think, what fuzzy is, let me see if I can get this, I have to work. A nicer way to say fuzzy is actually to say that we're dealing with multi-medium, not multimedia, but multi-medium forms of collecting and forms of researching. And again, having the National Library as a stomping ground is particularly significant when you study Jewish liturgy, because you realize that you can study it through texts, through books, through manuscripts, and through sound archives. And this is really a paradise for this kind of work. So that's how I approached the topic to begin with. And when I walked into the Magnes, the old Judel Magnes Museum, by the way, here is a, then I'll explain what this is. This is a few images of the, I decided to show, instead of the website, to show the New York Times. This is the newly reopened Magnes collection, former collection of Judel Magnes Museum in Berkeley. So when I walked into the collection of the Magnes Museum, I realized that fuzzy was the key idea, but really the key idea was this multi-medium form of collecting. What is that about? So again, a paradigm like that of the sound archives here at the National Library is useful. A multi-medium form of collecting means sort of like an open source form of collecting. There is not one core decisional way of collecting, but multiple minds that decide when, what, how to collect at the same time, right? In the case of the sound archives here, a collection I'm very familiar with, really there was a sort of like a communal effort from various sources, scholars, practitioners, cantors, you name it, to collect something that no one else was really paying attention to. In 1962, exactly 50 years ago, Seymour Fromer, Zichrono Livracha, did what some partners of crazy compulsive collectors should do. His wife, Rebecca Campri, decided, enough with all of this stuff in the house, let's start a museum. And they started a museum in the back room of a movie theater in Oakland, California, and eventually in 1967 they moved to a mansion in a lovely residential neighborhood of Berkeley. But it's not that they just themselves started a museum. They created a community of activist collectors. And the randomness of this activity is still felt today, and it's quite a legacy, because what we're doing now is that we've turned this activist grassroots form of collecting into a university, into an academic asset. So we're transitioning and experiencing the challenges of both worlds, and how do we keep both worlds alive at the same time. So I could go into a whole bunch of technical ideas, but I would say that the core one is that of the, and there are competing acronyms for this, ALM or LAM, LAM, but in any case, Archive, Library, Museum, Collection Management. Before even collecting, how do we manage these multi-medium collections? And how do we, of course, negotiate various metadata sets, and even within one institution, what kind of needs, and then how do we communicate that with the world? So all of this is work that I've been dealing with for the last several years and continue to work with, and how does that work integrate beyond the space of an individual institution? This is really the challenge and the opportunity at this time with the partnership with the University of California, Berkeley. So I would just point to two things. One is that sort of what the results are of this form of collecting, and so I wanted to point to show you two things. This is a snapshot I took just before I left. In moving the collection to the new facility, we're discovering and rediscovering all kinds of things. This came up. This is an activity log for a camper in the earliest Jewish summer camp in California. It was founded by Louis Blumenthal, who also founded the San Francisco Jewish Community Center with his wife. And so you see that this was really meant to last that one season. So I think that this sort of expanded fuzzy category of ephemera could apply to this strange object for which I don't know that we could even agree on a title on a name. How do you call something like this? What is it? Interestingly enough, the Internet Archive earlier was not working, but hopefully I'm able to get it to work again, because I know now it should go. We've also collected a promotional film from this summer camp that has been digitized as part of a state effort of the state of California, through University of California, Berkeley. The asset is hosted, including the metadata, on the website of the Internet Archive, so you can enjoy looking at young Jewish Californians frolicking in the Sierras in the 1930s. But this too is a form of ephemera. We have very interesting partners in thinking about these materials in the Bay Area, including the Internet Archive that's located there, the Prelinger Archive in San Francisco, another compulsive collector of mostly audiovisual materials, and who is really trying to figure out how to manage this sort of compulsive forms of collecting of things. And I don't need to add much to what Shalom has already said, but I would like to point out a couple of things to conclude. So, and again, I could, I'll pause this, otherwise you'll just look at that and not listen to me. But it always happens that way with audiovisual materials, right? But of course, I could go into lots of details about what kinds of materials are in the collection, and it spans all areas of the diaspora, not just California. Materials are also, all the categories you saw are absolutely represented, so we have all the same challenges, and I think eventually that will be true of every collection that really confronts this sort of multi-medium aspect of it, doesn't push it or swipes it under the carpet. But there are a couple of things. One is a theoretical thing. I am a scholar. I do care about my bibliographic sources, and one is that actually I think that this notion of collecting ephemera in this fuzzy way comes from the mostly Jewish European modernist intellectual tradition. We owe it to individuals like Georg Simmel, like Walter Benjamin, and if we have a collection of Kabbalah here because of Gershom Scholem, his friend Walter Benjamin is probably responsible for our kinds of compulsive collecting of these materials. So these two traditions coexist, and I think it's important to hold this and to keep this in mind. What's important about collecting these things and studying these things, of course, is that they defy the paradigms of normative Judaism, so they allow us to really touch upon issues like the role of minority groups within Jewish societies, women's history when it's not documented otherwise, Jewish-Gentile relations, including especially in the diaspora, in the making of these items, how they're practically created. And then, of course, the whole issue of intangible culture. When we collect material culture, we also collect, if we collect objects, we collect the body language, the gestures that go with those objects. We collect the melodies of the texts that are used in the liturgy, et cetera, et cetera. So there is a whole ocean of issues of collecting. And in general, maybe a way to process this, and so this is my little contribution to this conversation, is that ephemera becomes a status rather than an issue of materials. So that we can really consider ephemera as in what is considered ephemera by its interpreters, what it was meant to be ephemeral, but then didn't become ephemeral because it lasted and we have it. What is actually ephemeral, even if it was not meant to be so, right? So we have all these categories, and I think, and it's particularly relevant to this conversation today, probably a very important category in this fuzzy status is that of born digital materials. And again, my lecture today was prepared on both an iPad and a piece of paper. And I do archive my lectures, and I have a way of managing this personally, but this is a huge problem. We know that guidelines from NARA right now still privilege paper over, so hard copies over digital, even of born digital documents. So there is a lot of theory to be dealt with. We recently had at UC Berkeley a conference about this, so it was discussed widely. What are rules of thumb for that? Probably in terms of born digital, they have to do with how born digital materials are to be used. Last Shavuot, I participated in a night of teaching in Berkeley. As you can imagine, in Berkeley you have good people to learn with on a night of Shavuot. And it's a good little diaspora there. And of course, all the planning and the program was circulated electronically. Yet it was meant to be printed and used in a printout during the night. I don't think there were people going around with an iPad, even though that could have been possible as well, because of the multicultural dimension of the community. But that was really meant to be printed. So in that case, I would definitely collect the printed item. In this case, I think I will digitize this and add it to that, and that's it. Thank you very, very much.
Last of the presenters, they will be Meron Eren, who is the owner and director of the Kedem auction house. Also, another definition for Einstein's theory is Gan Eden Mekedem. What you have there is Gan Eden. The price we have to pay is Gehinom.
קודם כל שלום לכולם, ותודה רבה על ההזמנה לדבר פה. היום ה6 ביוני, ואני לא יודע מה התאריך הזה אומר פה לרוב האנשים, אלא אם כן זה יום הנישואים שלהם, הם חייבים לזכור את זה. לבני הדור שלי זה 30 שנה למלחמה בלבנון. מלחמה שהיה לי, לא אגיד הכבוד, אבל השתתפתי בה. ובשבילי ובשביל הדור שלי זה אירוע היסטורי חשוב. אני חושב שזה גם אירוע שהשפיע הרבה מאוד על מדינת ישראל. זה לא די-ג'יי גם כן? די-ג'יי. כן, אני מדבר. וגם 6 הימים אתמול, כן. זה ממש מלחמת 6 הימים. כי מלחמות נוח מאוד לעשות באביב. זאת אומרת, אנשים למדו מנפוליאון. ופה הבאתי דוגמה של אפמרה שאני לא בטוח לא נמצאת בהרבה אוספים בארץ, ואני חושב שהיא חשובה מאוד, כי המלחמה הזאת הייתה המלחמה הראשונה שלא היה קונצנזוס לגביה. זו מלחמה שיש השפעות עד היום. אני חושב שיש השפעות רבות על מה שקורה בארץ מהמלחמה הזאת, וכל מה שהיה נגד המלחמה ולצאת למבנון הוא נשמר רק כאפמרה. זאת אומרת, ההיסטוריה הזאת אין אותה בספרים, אין אותה בשום מדיה אחרת שתימצא אולי כאן בספרייה, רק באפמרה. זאת אומרת, אם מישהו אי פעם יוצא לעשות תערוכה או לחקור את היציאה מלבנון, הוא יהיה חייב אפמרה. ואני תוהה בכל, אני לא בטוח אם אפילו לספרייה הלאומית, יש את האוסף של הפליירים, של אירועים כמו זה, זה היה מוקדם מתוכם, זה ממש כבר ב-82, מי בא לשם, מי דיבר, ויש עוד הרבה כאלה. ואני אעבור איך אנחנו מעבירים אותו? כאן. למלחמה אחרת, אולי עוד יותר משמעותית. 73, מוטי אשכנזי, מלחמת יום כיפור, ומוטי אשכנזי היה למי שלא יודע, הוא היה זה הראשון שדיבר על המחדל של מלחמת יום כיפור וטען שצריך לעשות פה משהו רציני. עכשיו, ממלחמת יום כיפור, מלחמת יום כיפור הייתה מהפך, זאת אומרת, היסטורית ברור שזה אירוע חשוב מאוד. זאת אומרת, ממלחמת יום כיפור יצא שלום עכשיו בסופו של דבר, יצא גוש אמונים, יצא שמפאי לא שלטה יותר, זאת אומרת, זה היה מהפך גדול והכל תולדה של מלחמת יום כיפור ובעצם תולדה של המחאה נגד מלחמת יום כיפור. עכשיו, כל מה שקשור למוטי אשכנזי נמצא רק בפליירים, לא יצא, מוטי אשכנזי לא כתב ספר, הוא חילק דברים כאלה, זה הכל מכתבים, זה משהו קטן, זה פלייר קטן. ואני שואל, זאת אומרת, אני חושב שזה חשוב ביותר, ואני לא בטוח אם יש איזושהי ספרייה, ספריית הקונגרס או הספרייה הלאומית, שיש לה את הניירות של מוטי אשכנזי, זאת אומרת, איך אפשר יהיה לעשות מחקר? מישהו יודע איפה הארכיון של מוטי אשכנזי, מישהו חיפש אותו? זאת אומרת, אני אומר, אני פונה אליך יותר מכולם, כן? זאת אומרת, זה היסטוריה חשובה, זאת אומרת, ויחקרו אותה ויעשו תערוכות ולא יהיה את הניירות, כי זה אוטוטו, הדברים האלה אוטוטו בזבל. זאת אומרת, היום זה באיביי $5. זאת אומרת, אם מישהו מתאמץ, יורד לדיזינגוף לקנות בשוק, 30 שקל עולה הפלייר הזה. זה כל הסיפור, זה כסף קטן. ואני אעבור לעוד שניים כאלה שלדעתי הם חשובים מאוד, ואחר כך נדלג על זה. הכרזה המאוד מפורסמת הזאת, שזאת בעצם הכרזה שהיא הסמל של רצח רבין. שוב, אירוע שאני לא חושב שיש ויכוח שמישהו מתווכח שבתולדות עם ישראל זה אירוע חשוב. אני לא מדבר רק בתולדות מדינת ישראל, בתולדות עם ישראל. ולכמה ספריות מכל מי שיושב פה יש את הדבר הזה. עכשיו הדבר הזה היום עולה $50, $100, ככה, עד למעלה, מחיר של ספר. ואת זה יהיה צריך, זאת אומרת, ברור שאת זה יהיה צריך. זאת אומרת, אני חוזר על עצמי כי בעיניי זה חשוב להבין שיש היסטוריה שלמה, במיוחד במדינת ישראל, היסטוריה שלמה שמתועדת רק באפמרה, זאת אומרת, אין אותה בשום דבר אחר. זאת אומרת, רצח רבין, יש את הסרט, יש, אני לא יודע מה, מישהו יעשה על זה דוקטורט, אבל פה הבסיס. ואחרון, טרי, בשנה שעברה, ההפגנות של המחאה החברתית, שבשיא יצאו בישראל 300,000 איש לרחוב. את הדברים האלה, כל המחאה הזאת עבדה או דרך פייסבוק, או בפליירים שחולקו ברחוב. זאת אומרת, ואני תוהה האם מישהו, וזה רק לפני שנה, ואת זה יכולת לאסוף אפילו חינם, זאת אומרת, כל מה שאתה צריך לשלוח בן אדם, בשמחה הם נותנים לך. להפך, השתדלו להפיץ את זה כמה שיותר. אנשים עמדו וחילקו. ואני תוהה אם מישהו תיעד את ההתכתבות בפייסבוק וסביב האתר שקם של המחאה, ואסף את הדברים האלה, כן, שהם, זה פרק חשוב בתולדות מדינת ישראל ובתולדות עם ישראל. זאת אומרת, אנחנו עוד לא יודעים מה יהיה האפקט, שזה אף אחד לא יודע. אולי זה יגבה, אבל אולי זה יעשה מהפך בבחירות הבאות, אולי זה יעשה, אף אחד לא יודע מה זה יעשה, אולי זה יעשה מהפכה כלכלית בישראל. אבל מישהו צריך לשמור, לתעד את זה, לאסוף את זה, כדי שאפשר יהיה, וכבר הייתה תערוכה אחת, ופנה אליי, הייתה תערוכה בירושלים, והם לא היה להם פליירים, הם עשו תערוכה, היה להם צילומים, והם לא, רק שנה אחרי, הם פנו, לשמחתי אני יודע 3 אנשים שפשוט, אנשים פרטיים שהלכו ואספו את הדברים האלה. וזה מביא אותי לעניין הבא שאני רוצה ככה להעלות, דווקא בגלל שאני לא מהצד שלכם, אלא אני מהצד של המסחר, וזה כל הנושא של ביל העלה את הנושא הזה של אוספים פרטיים, ופרנצ'סקו עוד הראה עוד יותר, זאת אומרת אוסף פרטי שהפך למוזיאון, שהפך למקום אקדמי. אני טוען שבתחום של האפמרה, האספנות הפרטית היא, כמו ששלום הראה על האוסף שלו, היא הרבה יותר חזקה, בגלל שהאפמרה זולה יחסית, במיוחד זאת שקשורה במדינת ישראל, אז יש אספנים פרטיים שהגיעו לאוספים מרשימים, יש להם ידע שאין אותו גם באקדמיה, זאת אומרת, הם התמקצעו כל כך, בן אדם שאוסף תולדות הרכבת בישראל. זאת אומרת, נכון שיש בארץ מוזיאון של הרכבת, אבל זה מוזיאון פסיבי לחלוטין שלא עושה כלום. לאותו אספן יש הרבה יותר מהם, גם בידע וגם בפריטים. עכשיו, אני מנצל את הבמה הזאת, זאת אומרת, לדעתי יש כאן אפשרות אוסף כזה הוא עולה למוסד אקדמי הרבה פחות מלאסוף אותו בעצמו. זאת אומרת, אם מגיעים לאיזשהו הסדר עם כזה אספן פרטי, לפחות לסרוק את כל האוסף שלו, שאני לא מדבר על לרכוש את כל האוסף שלו, שזה יעלה פחות מלייצר עכשיו את האוסף הזה כמוסד, הרבה פחות. ואוספים כאלה מסתובבים, אני יודע רק מאלה שאני עובד אותם, אוספים יפהפיים בנושאים הכי מוזרים שאתם יכולים לחשוב, אבל חשובים, זאת אומרת, מכרטיסי רכבת לאמצעי תשלום. פה היה עניין שלם עם דרכים לשלם שאינם כסף. ויש אוספים יפהפיים של הדברים האלה. לעבור לאקסליבריס, נניח שזה משהו שכן, בגלל שזה קשור לספרים, אז אתם שומרים אותו. אבל יש 1,001 דברים אחרים, מנייר, נחמדים, קטנים, חשובים היסטורית, שנמצאים בידיים פרטיות. עוד אולי נושא אחד קטן שאני ככה הייתי שמח, שקשור לאפמרה והייתי שמח לעלות פה פעם נוספת, אבל לא פעם נוספת, אני חושב שהוא לא עלה פה ממש ברצינות, זה הנושא של איסוף ארכיונים פרטיים. שזה גם קשור לאפמרה, כי זה הרבה אפמרה בתוכו, ואני מרגיש שהתחום הזה מפוספס לגמרי. אם ניקח דוגמה, אני חושב כמעט בכל נושא שקשור בתולדות מדינת ישראל, אפשר למצוא פה בארץ ארכיונים לא אוספים, זאת אומרת, בן אדם שפשוט שמר את הניירות שלו, וזה חשוב למרות שהוא לא היה בן גוריון, זאת אומרת, אבל הוא עדיין חשוב, אם הוא היה איש מוסד שעסק להביא עולים ממרוקו בשנות ה-50, זאת אומרת, זה חשוב מאוד, אין את החומר הזה, זה לא מופיע בשום מקום, והיום זה לא מאוד יקר, ואם הוא לא ילוקט היום, הוא מגיע לזבל. המתחרים שלכם זה, כמו ששלום הראה קודם, וזה באמת ככה, המתחרים זה פח הזבל. אז יד ושם עשו מבצע שמציל המון ניירות, עוד 2 דקות, וואו, שמציל המון ניירות, ואני חושב שזה בהשקעה יחסית קטנה של מסע פרסום, וזה משהו שאפשרי להרבה תחומים אחרים, וזה ניירות שפשוט ממש בימים אלה, זאת אומרת, מקימי המדינה בימים אלה עוברים מהעולם. זאת אומרת, אם אתה רוצה לשמור את החומר משנות ה-40, זה הדקה ה-90 לקרוא להם להביא לכם, והם יביאו לכם את זה חינם, או אם זה מסוחרים, בהרבה מקרים זה לגבי הארכיונים הלא חשובים, זה כמעט חינם. טוב, אז בדקה שנשארה לי אני רוצה להגיד שוב תודה רבה, גם שהקשבתם, גם שהזמינו אותי לפה. אני חושב שזה כנס חשוב מאוד, ונהניתי מאוד.
אני אנצל את ההזדמנות לדבר בעברית, מאחר שיש לאנשים את הציוד. קודם כל אני חייב להגיב לאתגרים שמרון הציב פה, אז אני רק אומר בקצרה שלשמחתי אני יכול לומר שאת החומר של מוטי אשכנזי יש בספרייה, ואת החומר של השמאל הרדיקלי קיבלנו כאוסף פיזי ודיגיטלי, והכנסנו אותו, הוא נכנס עכשיו למאגר הדיגיטלי של הספרייה הלאומית. את אותו דבר אני יכול גם לומר על המחאה החברתית של השנה האחרונה. באופן כללי, בהמשך לדברים שנאמרו פה אתמול, הספרייה, זה לא נזכר פה עד עכשיו, הספרייה הלאומית נכנסה לפרויקט של 3 שנים של סריקת אפמרה ישראלית. אנחנו נסרוק במשך 3 שנים 150,000 פריטי אפמרה, שכחציים, בערך חציים הוא מהספרייה הלאומית, וחציים מאוספים אחרים בישראל. יש לנו ועדה שמלווה את הדבר הזה, ושלום הוא היושב ראש שלה. חלק מרכזי, חלק מהאוספים שלנו שיסרקו, בעיקר אוסף הכרזות, זה חלק אחד, זה חלק של התרבות, וחלק אחר זה חלק של פוליטיקה, בחירות, ובעיקר סביב מערכות בחירות. ורק כדי להשלים את התמונה, אני יכול לספר שהשבוע יצרנו קשר עם עמותה שאוספת כרזות של התרבות העכשווית של מועדוני הלילה של תל אביב, של המסיבות של תל אביב, וגם את הכרזות האלה אנחנו נקבל לכאן, ואני מקווה שגם נוכל להנגיש אותם בצורה דיגיטלית. ללא ספק, הים הוא אדיר, האוקיינוס הוא אדיר, ובאמת אני מסכים שאוספים פרטיים הם המפתח באוספי אפמרה. לנו יש את התחומים החזקים שלנו, אבל ללא ספק אוספים פרטיים זה התחום החזק שלהם לעומת חומרים מסוג אחר, וזאת הסיבה שגם אנחנו פונים לשותפים באותו פרויקט של דיגיטציה של אפמרה. אז כמובן שותפים אחרים זה לא רק אוספים פרטיים אלא גם אוספים מוסדיים שגם אתם מחזיקים ברבים מהם, ואפשר יהיה לשלב הרבה מאוד שותפים. אז תודה רבה.
Almost all the presentation and the responses dealt with current ephemera, or Israeli or 20th century. And I want to return to something that I didn't develop enough as I would have, because I would probably say that the most important part of my collection is ephemera. But the early ephemera, which started 17th, 18th, 19th century material, which exists in every one of the collections that are represented here. And I would again try to throw down the gauntlet and issue a challenge in the same way that we have the Ketubah site here, to create the site for these items, which everybody has, I would say, in a good, many of the cases are already digitized. I've got 2,000 to 3,000 images that I would gladly contribute to any one of the sites that would be set up, but somebody has to take the responsibility. Second thing, Chezi, to you, I don't know, I would assume you're again in touch with Harvard, and I hate to keep bringing this up, but they've got 2 million items online of ephemera. And it's just amazing to me. I don't know whether what you are scanning is already done there or not, but somehow somebody's got to talk to Charles and create a channel of communication so that we don't duplicate all that stuff. He's invested decades in gathering and photographing and putting online all this material, and not to take advantage of it in a unified manner just breaks my heart.
Gentlemen, there was
Can I just respond to Bill? I mean, of course, the ephemera of the past is very important. That we know very well. But what we do now is thinking about the future. That's what we do.
Shalom, of course I don't object to it. We just have to at least put a base.
Yeah.
I just want to.
Anyone else wants to respond to Bill?
I just had not enough time. I wanted to speak also about Charles Berlin, because what he did, okay, he had his sponsors that maybe not everybody have here, but he had 10 times more than the National Library of Israeli ephemera. I mean, and he's doing it by, in the very easy way, just people here collecting, you know, going in the street and collecting the things. It costs nothing. And
I was just going to. I don't want to really actually move away from what William has raised, but I'll just come back to us. I just want to make 2 points and then maybe come back to this. One, I would say you don't have to worry, because if it winds up in the trash, Shalom will find it. And so, you know, this is really. But the thought I had just coming away from this was Moshe Rossman's talk last night, you know, and you know, thinking about the movie, The Footnote, and the searing contempt for folklorists and the popular culture, and the idea that this is, you know, worth institutions collecting. And I thought it'd be interesting to hear about various opinions responding to the turn in library collecting to ephemera on a theoretical level. And without putting you on the spot, I'd say if anybody in this room or maybe in this world is capable of opening a channel of communication, you may be that person.
Sorry, I just have a short question, maybe a very librarian type technical question. You all, or you made an appeal to buy and to collect, but then the question is, if we have all this ephemera, how do we make sure that it's cataloged or indexed or can be found and can be seen? Because my question is it really something positive if we amass a lot of things, thinking about staff, money, stacks, where to put it? Or maybe we should have to think of ways of coordinating and of putting our staff in indexing part of it, of selection, because otherwise you have things but nobody knows about them. And maybe the effort has to go more in the way of presenting things, of trying to coordinate and to then bring it to the public.
Okay, I say speak for myself. I mean, my initial drive is to buy and to save this. I don't catalog them. Unfortunately, I don't have time. But to have them, and then I think about maybe students that will do it. Definitely, it has to be done, because otherwise it's inaccessible. But the first thing is, like Meron was also saying, is to save these items, because otherwise they will be gone very fast. So that's the first thing should be done. And then libraries should collaborate, definitely.
One challenge is the multi-dimensional form of collecting, whether it's two-dimensional or three-dimensional, how do repositories deal with this issue? And those policies vary from institution to institution. It's really hard to so if we do apply the fuzzy categories that you've suggested, then it will be an inter-institutional problem. Like some institutions will deal with more museum-like objects, others won't, and so that's something that needs to be discussed.
Yeah, actually, I want to hook into this thing, because so Leo Baeck Institute's main collecting strategy is to have these family papers. And so the whole concept of fuzzy collecting, logic, cataloging, whatever, because our collections are full of ephemera in that definition. However, one person's ephemera is somebody else's essential commemorative thing. And so the danger in these ephemera collections is that you collect all these things, but in a way they go out of context because you have lots of leaflets, and you collect them in the street. Okay, so that's one strategy of how to come about these things. But people, historically, they retain these items. The question is, why do they do that? It's important for them. They have assigned meaning to these things. And of course, there are, we carry this badge with honor, the newspaper clipping. I mean, of course, it's an ephemera, but it has become very significant. Others, it's all in the eyes of the beholder. I mean, it's really, again, the researcher tells us about, or ideally, if the curator is also a researcher, what is the context? How does this item, I mean, like inoculation documents, why do we collect something about vaccination? Well, because if it is from 1919 in Alaska or Europe, people try to save themselves from the Spanish flu or something like this. So I think it's great to have this topic, but it needs to be sort of also connected to sort of a different kind of context.
Chaim, before you say, the question, why are people collecting ephemera? I think it's because it's there, it's like Hillary with Everest. Oh, this is collecting is a disease, so, don't ask the question why you are. But actually, after this session, maybe the Academy should sit and redefine this word because it's not anymore ephemera. It's so important. And maybe there should be a law passed that, like books, should be also, everything printed should go in 2 copies to the National Library or whatever, because it's today's alte Sachen is tomorrow's antique, and it's really so important, all right? Chaim.
סליחה, יש לי הערה קטנה ושאלה קצרצרה. הערה, אני מודה לשלום, עכשיו אני יודע מה אני צריך להביא לך מרוסקו. אני מביא לו אלבומים $300 שהוא לא קונה, ועכשיו אני באמת מבין מה אני צריך להביא, ואני מבטיח לך שאני אביא לך בידיים מלאות. והשאלה הקצרצרה שלי, איך אתה תקרא לאפמרה בעברית?
אין מילה.
לא, צריכים להמציא, אין תשובה כזאת.
בני חלוף, זה דברים בני חלוף.
יומית כזאת.
If we're speaking about private collectors, of course, I mean, we have to differentiate between private collectors who has the permission or they can do whatever they want. They can invest in only collecting or collecting plus cataloging. We have a few examples here in this room for that. But institutionally, when we speak about the institutions, here I think the ephemera, and again, I'm not speaking backwards, but onwards, we have to take into account that it is impossible only to collect. It is not even moral only to collect. We have to invest in the beginning in thinking how to do it. And again, I'll bring our own example. Last April, we started this campaign that you mentioned. We call it Gathering the Fragments, לאסוף את השברים. It is operating a bit more than a year. In the first year, we met 4,000 people, and we collected more than 60,000 items. Most of them are documents and photographs, but items, artifacts, art, etc., that are connecting to the period of the Holocaust. Now, it took me 2 years to decide that I'm starting the project, because in those 2 years, we invested most of our funds and time to create a situation where we can promise something to the donor. First, that we are interviewing him with the artifact, so we have the context, So we produced, by consultation with art curators, with curators of artifacts, with archivists, how to do it collectively, because we are doing it collectively. And then we promised that in 6 months, everything will be digitized, cataloged, and accessible to the public. And of course, preserved physically. You have to do it, and you have to invest in that, and this is the most expensive investment. Without doing this, then it will be piles of unknown, non-context material, which will be actually at the end nothing.
I would like to answer you. I think it's an all question of seder adifuyot, how you say seder priorities. Like, if you decide as a national library, and excuse me, to buy a manuscript that costs millions, with those millions, you can make the program or the database or whatever you need to start to collect ephemera. The ephemera will not be there. Like, if you, it's only, as I feel, it's an excuse, how we organize it. It's a question of money.
Well, but I'm sorry. There is one which is it is an issue of institutional investment beyond the acquisition process. It's the workflows. I could happily show you the workflow chart on how to integrate archive, library, museum. It will cross your eyes. And this is even ideal with a very small institution. When you grow in size, you have all kinds of we all know this. You have departments that are fighting off wars with one another and so on. So those all have monetary costs. Yeah. So not just the precious item has a monetary cost, but the labor-intensive work.
So I just wanted to mention, except for a touch by Meron, the most, I think, ephemeral format of text today is the web. And
born digital.
This is my, I guess, yeah, this is my opinion. And we are very concerned about Israeli culture happening on the web, which is actually disappearing. And we would like to, we are going to harvest the Israeli web, whatever that is, until the end of the year. And this brings a whole lot of other series of questions about copyright, about collection policies. And I guess when we start doing that, if you have any ideas of how we should proceed, I would very much like to hear your opinions.
I have a question to the panel. It's a technical question. I'd like to know how do you preserve this material, because you have different formats. You have broadsheets, you have boxes, you have... So how exactly do you preserve them? Are they under Melanex? Are they in face boxes? How do you catalog them? There is a whole process of dealing with this material. How do you do that, Peggy?
Do you want to answer?
Shalom Sabar.
Well, you could see in my one of my photographs all those boxes of acid-free boxes. So everything, so once it's processed.
But when you want to show them to somebody, you have to take the whole box to show one item.
Yeah. Yes, that's what we do. And in terms of the web, the library has been archiving materials, but doing it by subject. In other words, they've been archiving materials about the presidential elections in the United States. They archived everything that they could pull in after 9/11. They did the same thing with the tsunami a number of years ago. So these are the kinds of things, they're doing it by subject or by theme rather than just pulling everything in.
So when you call up one item of interest, you have to, is it cataloged in your system by ephemera 1, ephemera 2, a whole box, or is it itemized?
No, definitely not itemized. And the only thing that you would find that might be cataloged would be some of the Israeli election material and some of the poster material.
So it's a sort of generic.
Yes, by collection rather than by item level.
In the Zionist Archive, there are 14,127 boxes, and they're all cataloged, and in each catalog it will tell you how many items there are in the box. How many items are in the box, and they're divided into topics. So it's not not going really till the end of it, but you can have a good idea of what it is, where it is, and how many items in the box, on which category.
Last question by Shammai. Last question.
I think sometimes, concerning trash, sometimes caution is called for. I'll tell you a very short story. A couple of years ago, I was approached by a dealer. We were approached by a dealer at the National Library. He offered us a personal archive of a person, a journalist, a political activist, and also a researcher of Middle East, who passed away a few years before that. It seemed fishy to me because I knew that the widow of this man is still alive. So it was very strange that the dealer should offer us the archive. I called the widow. It turned out that she sent the material for recycling. She did not want the material to be collected and so on. So we called the dealer. I mean, I went through it was really very interesting material. Quite a large number of very thick folders, and the widow was very certain that she did not want the material to be collected and preserved at the National Library. It ended up that the dealer understood what he had to do only when he was told that if he does not immediately return to the material to the place, there's a center in Givat Shaul where they recycle paper, the police will be called. Berkeley, at the same time, he also offered us an archive of a local branch of a political party. And also, I mean, this did not touch on the question of privacy, so we did not, so we just rejected the offer. But I think people have to be careful with such offers, especially by dealers. As you can see, trash may be a very
I would like to answer you, to remind you that you wouldn't have Kafka if
Yes, I was just
somebody
saying,
wouldn't.
yeah.
No, why not?
Okay.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I don't know what is this archive. If this is historically important, it doesn't make sense that it will go to the trash because the widow thing. He was important person. I mean, it's something to think about.
But she's,
like Kafka.
she's the owner.
Okay, at the moment. So you have to find.
You have to
Kafka.
Go and persuade her.
Oh, Kafka was the owner. He said, you know.
Well, thank you very much. I'd like to thank Professor Shalom Sabar, Peggy Pearlstein, Francesco Spagnolo, and Meron Eren. תודה רבה.